All right, salutations, listeners. Si valas veleo.
Vala Mogulis.
Nano. Thank you for tuning in. This is Three Men in a Basement, and we are the Ultra Crepidarians. My name is Colin McLeod.
Mark Culp here.
And Jackson Garlington.
Action Jackson, as we affectionately know him. In this podcast, we review movies and we deliver to you, the listener, an average schmuck's opinion about hidden gems in the wild world of cinema. In the show, we try to target movies that are not blockbuster smashes. We also try and target movies that are not so obscure that you couldn't get your hands on a copy even if you wanted to. Instead, we like to aim for that delightful sweet spot of movies that are right in the middle, the good ones, the best ones, the unsung heroes of the cinematic world. We aim for films that, in our experience, too many people haven't seen. Maybe some that people have only heard of, or ones that some may have seen but forgotten about since they initially came out and deserve another watch. We review these movies and then we deliver to you our take on whether or not we like them, whether we didn't, and whether it's worth your time to go and watch it. In this, the 11th?
12th. Lucky number 12.
Lucky number 12.
That's what people say.
Some say.
The big 1, 2.
The prequel to the next lucky number?
Oh, yeah.
7.
Yeah. Oh,
the prequel to 7. We're into some interesting math here.
Yeah.
Like hyperbolic geometry. We're looping back on ourselves.
Yeah, I think it's Common Core. It's like volume 2.
Yes.
Thanks, Obama.
Jeez.
Oh, wow. Maybe.
Classic. That's funny.
Showing my cards.
No, but he's a gentleman and a scholar. So we are, in this 12th episode, reviewing the movie Enemy Mine.
Enemy Mine.
Now, that is enemy mine, not mind. And we're not, we're not referring to a mine. What in what context are we using the word mine? Like, is he taking his enemy? Or is he presenting his enemy with some explosive device? You know, what is the context of...
Like, would it be enemy claymore mine or enemy
proximity?
landmine, proximity mine?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Or is it like enemy, gimme that? Or like, that's my enemy?
And then the sequel, the natural sequel, enemy thermal detonator.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, it's a toss-up. It's kind of a puzzler.
So this movie, yeah, I guess we're just going to slam you with some IMDb shit right here because... yeah, I think we need to get that out of the way because we've got some shit to talk about with this movie. So, Enemy Mine came out in 1985, deep in the Reagan era. Wow, we're really on the president kick today. I don't know. I have no idea. I was primed, I think, to say that.
Good job, Bush.
Thanks, Clinton.
Thanks, Nixon. Rated PG-13, an hour and 48 minute runtime. IMDb has the description of this movie as... During a long space war, the lives of two wounded enemies become dependent on their ability to forgive and to trust.
Yeah.
Thoughts on that?
That's kind of hits it?
Yeah,
I feel
it
like...
sort of hits it, but it's leaving a lot unsaid.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I feel like a lot of the other movies that we reviewed, the IMDb description really kind of nails it, and it gets the nuts and bolts without giving too much away. This doesn't give anything away, but that is the bare minimum of what you need to know about this movie.
You might as well have just written, Space Cowboy and left it there.
Spowboy.
Spowboy.
As some will call them.
Yes.
They're everywhere.
It's true.
They are the galaxy's venereal disease.
They're hidden among us.
Oh, God.
Spowboys.
What was the runtime you said? You said, was it 140?
148.
Now, it's 148, or is that an hour and 48?
Hour and 48, sorry. My B.
So, again, we're not in spoilers here. I enjoyed this movie. It felt longer.
It felt a lot longer.
I don't mean that as necessarily as a criticism.
No.
But the pacing. Well, we'll talk about it.
Yeah. No, I actually agree with both of you. I do feel like it feels longer, but I feel like kind of the way this movie progressed, it's sort of to be expected, but hopefully you guys will get that when you get eyes on this, or if you want to listen into the podcast, maybe you'll understand a little bit more about why we are saying such things about such a gem. This was directed by Wolfgang Petersen, obviously.
Wolfgang.
I mean, Wolfgang Petersen. What else has Wolfgang Petersen done? I mean, The Galactic Report, Jenny Starpepper, and The Seven-Headed Worm.
Yep.
Amadeus?
Yeah, well, probably.
Wolfgang?
Okay, so I have no idea who the fuck Wolfgang Petersen is. Peterson? It's
Peterson.
It's Peterson. My bad.
He's a German Viking, clearly.
Yes. Son of Peter.
Yes.
But I think he did an okay job.
I would say so, yeah.
He directed Das Boot.
Oh, for fuck's
Das
sake. I feel
Boot.
really bad now. I love that movie.
Yowza.
Actually, he's got
Oh my god, he's got some fucking street cred.
The Never-Ending Story.
Oh my god, did he really?
Air Force One with Han Solo.
I
Air
feel
Force
bad
One.
now.
Wow.
I feel like we did Wolfgang dirty.
Yeah, we're bad people.
Wir gegen die Bank.
Oh my god, I love you, Gank.
Or also known as Four Against the Bank. He did Troy. Everybody
Wow,
loves Troy.
I didn't know he did Troy. That's kind of
Oh
that's
shit,
actually
he did
surprising.
the Perfect Storm?
And Air Force One. Holy
Fucking
cow.
hell.
Yeah. All right. I'm sorry, Wolfgang.
Yeah, I feel
Yeah.
super bad because this dude's got some fucking.
I kind of
like,
feel like a dick now.
Yeah, we're gonna get
this
some.
dude bangs.
We're gonna get some hate mail.
Yeah, we are.
He's gonna call
Honestly,
us.
send us hate mail. Like we haven't gotten any mail yet, so
Just send us something.
send us something.
Toenail clippings, anything at this point.
Post-it
very
notes.
Stand outside my house and breathe heavily for like hours. That'd be fine.
Just yell at my apartment.
You could literally burp into an envelope and send it to us, and
Yeah.
we would still be excited.
Yeah,
I'm
that'd be
pretty excited
cool.
about that.
Rip it open, go. Ooh, hot dogs.
Another human.
Another human.
Yeah.
And we know what they eat.
Yeah. So who starred in this movie?
All right, so stars, we've got, right off the bat, Dennis Quaid.
What else has he done?
Like ever?
Yeah.
I think he was in an episode of Ellen.
Yeah. I think he was
he's
in
kind of
one
like a
those.
one episode kind of guy. Just like
Yeah.
pops in and
Sort of a one-hit wonder.
he
if you
was,
will.
yeah. I mean, nobody knows who Dennis Quaid is. No, Dennis Quaid, obviously amazing. Dragonheart, which got brought up during the movie.
Yeah, actually.
Oh my god, I love Dragonheart.
So good.
So, such a classic.
One of my favorite movies of all time is like a special movie for my family and is actually on our list to review is Undercover Blues.
Oh,
which is with
yeah.
Dennis Quaid and Kathleen Turner, which
Yeah. I've
is
seen
an
that.
amazing movie. What else we got Dennis Quaid in? Inner Space.
Yep.
That was a good one with Martin Short. Yeah, so Dennis Quaid, most people, I think, he's a pretty household name. Very handsome, very charming guy. And this is 1985 Dennis Quaid. So, like... you
Total
know-
babe.
Yeah, dude. Like, there's a couple scenes with his shirt is, like, a little off.
Oh,
and, dude, he is chiseled.
Water World. Wasn't that Dennis Quaid? No, it's Kevin Costner.
That was Kevin Costner.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Kevin Costner, Dennis Quaid, same guy actually.
True.
It just depends on the lighting.
That's
Yeah.
I've heard this. Yeah.
Whether they, like, light them from below or from above.
Yeah.
I think
I
yeah.
prefer below, honestly.
Yeah, I don't know which one that is, but I also prefer from below.
Yeah.
Just because it casts some pretty dank shadows.
Yeah.
As above, so below. It's a little movie joke I threw in there.
You know, some call him Mr. Pig.
It's big. I'd say the second biggest name here, I'm probably going to butcher this name, Louis Gosset?
Yeah,
Is it
Louis Gossett Jr.
Louis Gossett Jr.
Yeah, you may know him from Jaws 3D.
You may.
You will not know him from Jaws 3D, guaranteed. But he was in Roots,
Yeah.
and he was
Officer and a Gentleman.
Officer and a Gentleman.
He's
Yeah.
also in Watchmen, which was interesting.
In the current version of it.
Yes.
The I think the HBO Stingamagoober.
Yeah.
I have not watched that. I need to get on that.
It's pretty good.
Is
You
it
should
good?
check it out.
I haven't either.
I enjoyed the movie,
Yeah.
and I loved the graphic novel. Okay, so the last name, not a household name, but somebody that we may want to pick out just because he's got like a face you'll recognize probably. Brian James, who he's kind of a mean looking dude. So we got Brian James in Blade Runner as like one of the replicants early in the film that like kind of loses his shit with the turtle analogy and ends up getting taken out by Blade Runner, blah blah. He was also the general in The Fifth Element, he was kind of older in that film. I think that film came out later, but
aged him.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I mean that film came out a little later anyway, but I think they put some years on him. Do we think we've hit the sort of IMDb highlights, or is there anything else that we want to chip away at?
I think we've hit the spark notes for the most part.
Are we moving into recommendations before a little spoil action?
I think so.
right.
I think that was nice. We'll dip a toe in. Which toe though is the question.
I'm going second to the left of the right.
Oh.
See, I prefer the middle toe. It's the longest, but it's also one of the skinniest. So you
Okay.
get, a nice depth, but not a whole lot of contact.
I like it.
Okay, so the middle toe being the longest, that whole thing. Just, I don't feel like it should be the longest.
I would agree with you.
but
It
are-
doesn't make any sense.
But are you saying it's the longest from where it comes out of the foot? Or are you saying it actually extends the farthest, like...
It depends on the foot.
I feel like if it's just the longest bit of the foot, the furthest out, you might want to file it down.
Wait,
Yeah.
are you trying to insinuate here that it's not your longest toe?
It is most certainly not my longest toe.
It's my longest toe.
It's my longest toe.
Your middle
Yeah,
toe is
yeah.
your longest toe.
Absolutely,
100%.
100%.
Not the physical length of it
I'm saying if you...
from where it comes out of the foot, but like it extends the furthest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah, you ever seen E.T.? It's basically that, except once
whoa.
in the middle.
Yep.
Oh my god, I've got to see this.
Hang on, here.
All right,
not-
Mark
I've got to
is
see
slightly
this.
disrobing.
Yeah, sorry,
This is-
sorry, listeners. This is a little detour that we need to take.
Yeah, this is an adventure.
What is that?
Oh my god, he's checking which foot it's on. This is so...
This is
Symmetry is for losers.
this is important. This is breaking
I
news.
forgot which foot it's on.
You just shut up about that. Yeah, no. Ooh, it's a
No,
close...
that's not your middle toe. That's your middle toe.
Oh, no. Okay.
Dude, there's 5 fucking digits on a toe.
I'm not a mathematician, okay? Not the middle toe, the index finger toe.
Yes, okay.
Yeah, see, that's what I was referring to. As
Oh,
well.
okay.
All right.
Okay, so we got
that-
our wires crossed.
So that is
Fine.
called the Morton's toe.
The Morton's toe.
You don't know that.
It is legitimately called the Morton toe.
So I personally am dipping my Morton's toe into the summary of this film. How's that for a tagline?
I like it. Just a little Morton toe.
Yeah,
That is wonderful. And I gotta say, please, for the love of God, if somebody out there whose actual middle toe, the third, counting from either the left or the right, if that is the toe that extends the farthest away from the foot,
Foot pics.
please fucking send us that. I
Whoa.
am not a foot guy, but like, goddamn, I need to lay eyes on that.
Yeah, that needs to be a thing.
Be careful what you ask for. Okay?
Yeah, it's just our inbox is gonna be filled with dicks.
Yeah,
Butts and toes.
I feel it's gonna be like dicks photoshopped onto feet.
that would also be interesting. Although I'm not sure I want to see that.
That is not something I want to...
I might open that email.
Yeah,
I might.
I'd
open that.
I'd probably give it a glance.
All right, that's an about face. Okay, so recommendations. I recommend this movie. I had some earlier comments about the pacing. We'll get into that, but this is a good movie.
Absolutely.
I recommend it. Moving on, we'll go Jackson.
All right, Jackson here. I would most definitely recommend this movie to friends, to family, to people I don't even know, which is most of you. You should give it a watch. It's definitely worth sitting down for an hour and 48 minutes.
I completely agree. I love this movie. Yeah, my only caveat with recommendation is like, I feel like there is a small but very noticeable like contingent of our generation that's really sensitive to like things that are like a little cheesy or you know,
There's a lot of cheese.
goofy.
There
There's a
is.
lot of cheese.
It's
and
corny.
I feel like it's not corny. Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. It's not. I love that stuff.
Absolutely.
Like I'm sensitive to it, but in the other way. Like I see that and I'm totally like enthralled. And I don't feel like it gives anything away to say it's cheesy and corny. But like if you're the kind of person who's sensitive to that, this may not be your film. But anybody else on the street, and you know, my personal recommendation, if I had to go back in time before I've seen it and say, hey Colin, I would absolutely say, watch this effing movie.
Yeah, I would say more than a lot of movies that I've seen. If you don't buy into this one, I don't know if you're gonna like it. Like there is definitely a certain like, you know, there's that suspension disbelief, of course, but you know, you have to decide to be invested in the characters because again, this isn't giving anything away. There aren't that many actual characters in this narrative. So if you're not vibing with the two leads, turn it off. Because this movie is built upon their chemistry. So if you're not feeling it, that's it.
You're done.
Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree. However, I would say like the first 15 minutes, you're still getting like acquainted. Give it a half an hour because it's the second 15 minutes in the first half an hour. That's where you should sort of be like testing the waters and like if you're not interested, you're not buying in. Like, yeah, you probably won't for the rest of the movie. But I feel like, you know, I think most people can and will.
Yeah.
You know,
Absolutely.
but you have to give it just a tiny bit of effort, especially nowadays. In 1985, you probably would not have to have given it any effort.
No.
But now, because it seems corny and cheesy and a little, heavy-handed in some regard, it's definitely something that be aware when you're watching it in a good way. All right, are we ready to just
spoil the crap out of it?
Spoil the shit out of this movie.
Wep, 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 wep.
Spoilers!
Would you like to offer up a blam?
I would love to.
Okay, the floor is all yours.
Oh, that was a good. I like the vibrato in that.
Yeah,
I had to mix it up a little bit.
Yeah,
there was some hints of teenage awkwardness in
Yeah.
that. I picked up some notes.
I had to relive a little bit of my adolescenthood there. I gave it up a long time ago.
We were all with you.
Yeah.
there was like a flash of acne across your face,
Oh,
and
yeah.
just as soon as it came, it was gone.
Yeah. I'm mysterious that way.
Oh my god. Okay, so deeper. Let's man. So this movie wastes no time.
No.
No.
You read the summary, you know that it's about a man and an alien.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, and within 5 minutes, you're on the planet. You're stranded. They're seeking shelter.
Yeah, so basically this movie kicks off with it's basically a voiceover by Dennis Quaid.
There's a lot of that.
Yeah, and it lasts basically through the whole movie intermittently, that voiceover, and he is sort of describing this war that has been waging sort of like in the far parts of the galaxy, far away from Earth, between the human race and this race of humanoid reptilian-like aliens called the Drax. And there is this sort of hub, this spaceship-type hub, that Dennis Quaid is on, and it comes under attack by some Drac, sort of like...
Fighters.
Yeah, like fighter jets,
Yeah.
basically. The X-Wing version,
Yeah.
like the enemy mine version of the X-Wing.
Short-range fighters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it definitely, I don't know if any of you guys out there are Battlestar Galactica fans, but the first 5 minutes definitely give off that BSG vibe, you know? It's got that 80s nostalgia, and the designs of the ships are very reminiscent of those 80s classics. So it's definitely threw me the first couple minutes. I was like, wait, is Dennis Quaid part of BSG? Are we watching a new chapter? No. Okay, we're good.
That kid looks at the Galactica the same way I look at the Galactica. Sorry, I couldn't get away from Battlestar Galactica without throwing out a Dwight.
I get
like-
it. I was with you on that one. I was trying to hold it in.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, you're totally right. It definitely has that vibe. And yeah, so very quickly, you've got basically like voiceover, then you've got this brief battle.
Quick dogfight.
Yep. And basically in the battle, Dennis Quaid both shoots down a Drac fighter, doesn't blow up, but shoots it down, and his ship also crashes. So they both end up on the planet, and Dennis Quaid's co-pilot, I guess, or maybe...
Navigational
Navigator,
officer.
yeah, because he wasn't a gunner, because Dennis Quaid was definitely gunning.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean,
He dies.
He chases him into the planet, basically. Like,
Yeah.
It's Dennis
There-
Quaid's hate for the enemy that that causes the crash. Like, he was not in his right mind. You know, the reason why he crashed is because he was
Laser focused.
out for blood.
No, that's 100% accurate. That's and a great setup to the story. Like, not only in the voiceover is he really just seething with hatred for the Drax, but that scene, you're right, Mark, totally illustrates it. Like, he's chasing the Drac at his own peril into the planet.
As his navigator's pleading with him to stop him.
Yeah. Yeah, he's like, the engines are overheating, and, like, we're too close to the planet, and, like...
We're running out of weapons.
Yeah, right. Everything's fucked. Go back to the hub.
He's essentially chasing his own victory at any cost and at all cost. It's one of those revenge narratives where, you know, he was wronged and he will do anything to right that wrong, even if it means his own death.
And the irony that the audience definitely feels, or at least should feel, that his character at this point really doesn't, is like, they go out into this dogfight and he blows up like 3 Drac ships. And then a Drac ship blows up one of his friends, and he just loses his shit, and he's so angry, and you're like, you just straight up killed 3 of them, and you're laughing about it, and then a switch flips when, like, I mean, I know your friend died, that's terrible, but, like, you don't see the irony in, like, taking a life and not,
Yeah.
It's a really, like, it's actually almost kind of a tough scene to watch, because he seems crazed, and he seems, like, irrational, and...
Bloodlust.
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it.
Yeah, he was very two-dimensional at the beginning of the film, and he adds himself a third as the movie progresses.
And some might say that's what the movie is about.
Yeah. So they crash in 2 separate areas. Dennis Quaid buries his navigator, sees wreckage way off in the distance, and assumes correctly that it's the enemy ship. He journeys out to him. There's this sort of cat and mouse game where he's watching him from behind a boulder. Tries to light this guy on fire by, like, just destroying the lake that this,
He
guy's
basically
in.
pours space-age transmission fluid into the lake and then shoots it with a magnesium flare. And we'll get to quotes later, but there was a good one at that moment. It was pretty priceless. And the look on Quaid's face when he lights this lake on fire was just sheer hate and jubilance at the possible death of his adversary. It was
like the horrific death, like the burning death. Yeah, I remember, like, I think I breathed. I was like, God damn. It was brutal.
Bit much. And then, like, so there's just some back and forth. He ends up actually being captured and tied up, in quick order. And then he very quickly is demanding food from this creature that he had just previously tried to, melt into nothing. And he's, like, really abrasive about it. Give me food. He starts, like, smacking his lips together. And that's actually the first bit of communication that they have. His smacking of his lips, because he's trying to tell him that he's hungry for, whatever reason. And then I'll keep the Dracs, I guess. Is it Drac?
Drac is singular. It's DRAC.
Okay.
And Drax is, like, DRACS is plural, but it's not Drax like Drax the Destroyer.
No, yeah.
Which is X, I believe.
That Drac, whatever, starts smacking his mouth, and it's that mimicry in that one scene that, like, that's kind of like the catalyst for for them eventually learning each other's languages. I think that's probably the point where they were, he was communicating and he was hungry, and he was acknowledging that that's what he was after. I think that was the first real communication that they had.
Yeah, definitely. And also, during or shortly after that scene, it becomes evident that this planet is prone to, like, meteor showers, like really aggressive ones that are hitting the ground and, like,
exploding
and posing, like, a real health risk. Health risk, like, I'm from the fucking CDC. Yeah. It's a health risk, meteor showers.
The smoke from the meteor, upon inhalation, is possibly toxic.
Do you or a loved one have mesothelioma? It could be from meteor crashes.
Good news, all you need is a frickin' turtle shell.
Yeah.
Oh, my.
Okay, so they end up realizing really quickly that they need each other, even though they don't like each other very much. And they end up moving to higher ground, building a shelter, and...
which immediately falls down.
Yes.
Oh, that's a great bit.
It is a pretty great bit. Dennis Quaid is trying to build a sort of, like, Earth-like shelter out of...
sticks and rocks.
Yeah.
Like piling rocks on sticks and sticks on rocks.
Sticks on rocks and sticks on rocks and sticks on rocks and sticks on rocks. Sorry, I was at the club.
The Drac Club.
The Drac Club. Dude, let's open a club named Drac.
Yes.
Were you making it plural?
Drax.
Okay, Drax.
All right, what were we saying?
Yeah, so they're up sort of on higher ground. They build a shelter, and I think we can sort of breeze through the next big chunk by saying, like, it's a developmental period. It's not a montage, but it's a little like a montage, where they're basically, like, in a series of very short, very condensed scenes. Dennis Quaid is learning the Drac language. The Drac, who he calls Jerry, Dennis Quaid's character.
Based on some innocuous piece of dialogue, he heard a sound that kind of sounded like Jerry and decided, yep, that's his name.
I think it actually was his name. I think it was like the family name that he had to like.
Oh,
but it's
yeah.
because it sounds similar, but like it's definitely his family name is definitely not Jerry.
No.
But it's a little reminiscent of the scene in Shanghai Noon when his name is Tiangwan and he's like
John Wayne?
calling him John Wayne the whole time. Like
Yeah.
that's pretty great. Right. So in this sort of middle sequence, they're developing, they're learning each other's languages, they're getting used to their environment. So one of the things that Mark had mentioned were the space turtles.
I had an issue with that. I mean, he hits this space turtle shell, and I guess the inference is that if I can hit it,
That it's bulletproof.
that it's meteor proof.
Yes.
Which is a whole nother caliber of proof beyond
Space
bullet.
bullets.
Yeah.
So, okay, I will, like, totally concede the notion that hitting it with a rock from your hand is, like, a very silly test.
You want to
That
defend it.
probably only the worst engineers would engage in that test. However, from, like, a biological standpoint, I feel like the argument could be made, and I'm totally stretching this, but, like, I feel like this computes in my head, that these turtles did evolve on this planet, and if this planet is as prone to meteor showers as it's shown in the film, the shell that's on their back could very well be meteor-proof in order to protect them from, like, the continuous almost shower of meteors that's raining down upon them.
At least temporarily.
Yeah, at least deflect one or two.
Yep.
And they do not go into that in the film, and if they had, I feel like we wouldn't be, it would have been easily explained away that way, but instead they decided to explain it by, like, Dennis Quaid being like, they're meteor-proof, and he, like, grabs a rock and he, like, hits the shell, and it's...
And then he puts it on his head to display shelter. Shelter.
Yeah.
We can make a shelter out of it.
Never mind that these rocks are moving so fast that they are on fire. Okay?
From space.
from Space Fire.
Space fire.
But I will concede your logic holds up. Whatever.
Strength in numbers. Put enough shells together, could stop anything.
Just hit it with a rock.
Space rock.
Space Rock.
Okay.
That's a good beer by Shorts.
Yes.
Space Rock. Shorts, if you want to sponsor this podcast, please reach out to 3, that is the number 3, menandabasement at gmail.com. We would be happy for your support and your beer.
All right.
Definitely the beer.
Yeah, honestly, you don't have to sponsor us. Like, we this is low production, but
You don't need to support us either. We just want your beer.
yeah, just
It's true.
send beer.
Just give it to us. Okay, so we got the space fort, the turtle fort. So they're communicating, they're bickering like an old married couple.
It's adorable.
It really is, and it kind of forms that chemistry with them. And then there is this talk of religion, more or less. Dennis Quaid's character starts to learn the religion of
Shizmet.
Shizmet, and Dennis Quaid shares the religion of Mickey Mouse.
Yes. The great and wise Mickey Mouse.
Yeah, no, that's actually in the movie. But I think it was through this discussion.
I feel like you have to explain that scene in the movie now.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Like,
No, Mr. Pig can't do it justice.
so they're arguing about, it starts off with the Drac, played by Louis Gossett Jr. He's reading this, like, small book, clearly like a religious book, around his neck, and Dennis Quaid is like, why are you always reading that book, blah, 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 and he's kind of getting on him about it, and his response is basically to explain that this is a religious book by our holiest Drac,
The great teacher Shizmet.
the great teacher Shizmat, and they kind of get, like, bickering about it, and Dennis Quaid says some, like, not so PC things, like people are going to be offended by, like, what he said about a made-up fucking lizard people's religious guy, but he basically says, like, Shizmat eats shit, and not basically, he says those exact words.
Yeah, it's true.
And the Drac comes back with Mickey Mouse,
Because,
is a big dope.
Dennis Quaid had said, as the old adage goes, if at first you don't succeed, try again. Which we all know, we've all heard. And our favorite token Drac, Jerry, says, is this one of your wise teachers? And Dennis Quaid says, yes. He goes by the name of Mickey Mouse.
And this was like a pretty, like, this was at least, I would say, I forgot to mention that scene that sets up the funniness, but like it was probably 10, 15 minutes before the scene where they're yelling about Shizmat and Mickey Mouse, and it's like, you sort of bury it and forget about it, and they're like, you know, again, in this later scene, they're like at each other's throats, basically. And he's like, Shizmat eat shit. And like, he's like, Mickey Mouse is a big dope. And then like,
But they're being sincere at the time.
Very sincere.
Yes.
And Dennis Quaid's reaction is priceless. He just like
Loses his mind.
he starts to like laugh, but he can't laugh in the middle of an argument. So he just like does that thing where you purse your lips and like your eyes start watering. And he just like 90-degree turns and walks away like off camera, right?
Clearly lost the argument. Can't come back.
Yeah. So okay, they're doing this. Man, and how long does this go on? See, this is one of my criticisms of it. Is I don't know how much time we spend with Jerry and Dennis.
Willis is the character's name.
Will, yeah, because it. Well, I enjoyed all of it, and it's all really important for what comes next. I mean, this is why you have to go through this in order to care about the characters and to understand kind of their mindsets. But it's definitely drawn out in this period.
It definitely is. And that's the component that I alluded to earlier that I think makes the film feel longer than it is. Mm-hmm. Because they have to make the audience sympathetic to how long and how drawn out their experience on this planet was, that it basically makes the film feel long and drawn out, and and they're like doing a good job at making you feel that way, but it also like there's no way sort of to divorce that.
Well, and they can't depict that they're slowly and meticulously learning each other's languages without showing that on screen. So every scene that we go, forward, they're both getting a little bit better at each other's languages. The grammar starts to fall together. The accents start to build. And you kind of get to a feel for, okay, they've been here a while. But it starts to feel like, okay, I've been here a while. Mm-hmm. And so each one of these scenes that's pieced together by the next, you kind of don't have any scope of how long they're going to continue. Because some of these scenes are long, some of them are short. And you don't know the time span that has elapsed between the two. So you're kind of piecing things together as you go along. And it doesn't feel fractured, but at the same time, you think, okay, I missed something along the line here. But they do a really good job of explaining away the missing pieces. They build that using subtext and context, which I truly enjoyed. It didn't feel dizzying. I didn't feel confused or lost. So that was important.
Mm-hmm. And when the change happens in them, like you feel like it's earned. They've earned each other's trust. They've earned each other's friendship. I guess we can move on to it. Eventually, Jerry dies after revealing that he is. Well, when
they are.
Yeah, actually, I noticed that this time of watching this movie is. We do say he, like, and we will probably continue to say he because we know Louis Scotches Jr. is a dude, and it's also, he's got a dude's voice. But the species is meant to be asexual, and, like, their mode of reproduction is asexual. And they do a really good job throughout the film of not applying a pronoun to Jerry. And I'm like, I was kind of shocked about that for, like, a 1985 film, because they could have just, honestly, like, it could have very seamlessly, they could have had the he pronoun.
Yeah. And
it just, I don't think anybody would have noticed.
So it would have washed over.
You're saying you were looking for it through this time.
I was kind of curious because like one of the earlier scenes, they very much establish that like there is no male and female. They get pregnant all by themselves, and then they give birth to their own young. And I don't know if I noticed it tickled my brain or whatever, but like, yeah, I was kind of like, I guess looking for it after the film or during the film, and it definitely was not present, which was really interesting. And even at the very end, when like the narrator switches, it's not Dennis Quaid anymore. There's a different narrator.
Yeah, just kind of randomly.
He's referring to a drac, and he says it, and I was like, or they. I can't remember, but it was
he used
was
both,
it? Yeah, it was like some gender neutral like pronouns, which I thought was like really interesting and like props for consistency.
Yeah.
Like if you're going to have an asexual, like, class of beings, that's probably the most appropriate, version of pronouns to use. But
Yep. So, not that the species will typically die when they give birth. In fact, there's a whole ritual involved where they will apparently take their young in front of their council and they'll recite their lineage. It is when it's clear that Jerry is not going to survive the childbirth, he pleads with Will's character to swear to him that he's going to take his young
To Drakon.
to Drakon so that he can be like a full member of their community. It's very important to him that he do this. And initially, Dennis Quaid's character is super hesitant. I mean, because how would you do that?
yeah, he like cracks a joke about it, and like I feel like in probably what is an amazing display of emotional control, Jerry is basically like, I'm trying to bestow an honor upon you. I know it's difficult and it seems weird, but this is really important to me, and I hope it's important to you too. And will you let me do you this honor? Mm-hmm. And it was like a really interesting exchange, especially for how hostile their exchanges were in like the earlier parts of the film. He really like just kept his cool, even though this dude was mocking something that is probably the single most important thing to this being
Species.
ever.
Yeah.
Well, I think because not only did they become friends, but I mean, he picked up on his humor. Like he knew kind of his mannerisms and
Sarcasm.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't say that they don't have sarcasm, but like he definitely had sarcasm.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
You could tell. I mean, initially everything that he said was taken literally, and by this point in it, like they were just like an old bickering couple. So anyhow, Jerry dies after, was it Zamis? Zamis. The child is born, and then it like the movie pivots a little bit, and now it's a father-son movie for like the next 20-30 minutes or so.
The pace picks up considerably. And part of that is Dennis Quaid is raising this kid from a different species that he knows nothing about. And so he's basically like learning on the fly, but this species also grows a lot faster than humans do. So
in the span of a couple months, this infant becomes an adolescent.
yeah.
So he's learning words for the first time at like the human age of 12 or 13.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's really, really a cool sequence, and it's not, again, it's one of those things where it's like parts of it are a montage, but it's about 50-50 montage and just quick sequences that like develop the relationship between Willis and Zamis. And, Zamis is growing like at an exponential rate, and it's really, really cool, and they develop this very close relationship, and they explore all sorts of I think, okay, this movie has several themes that like go throughout it, and the most obvious one that they're like extremely heavy-handed with is this idea of like cultural relativism and like we are all the same, on the inside kind of stuff. And I feel like that's maybe a little cliche now. It's a little bit overdone now, and this movie is really, it lays it on thick. But this is one of the earliest movies I can think of that sort of explored that topic. So like being heavy-handed is to be expected. Mm-hmm. And I really like appreciate this movie for like tackling that at the time that they did. And it was the kind of thing that like I grew up watching this movie, and I feel like there's a small part of me that does hold on to those lessons of like, just because somebody acts different, looks different, walks different, talks different, holds different beliefs, does not make them less than. It does not make them bad or dangerous. It just makes them different, and different is okay. And they explore that in sort of all of its intricacies and depths. Definitely, all throughout the film, but definitely in the first half. And then in the second half, they explore some other sort of challenging topics like raising kids, single parents, even though it's done through like a human and an alien, it's step parenting. I mean, if you want to call it that, like there's a lot of like, he's trying to raise this kid as his own, but at the same time, it's like somebody else's kid who's like, that's their stock, and he's, the kid is questioning like, why don't I look like you?
Why do I have 3 fingers?
Yeah, like I want to look like you. I feel ugly, and he's having to like calm the kid's nerves about that. And
which is funny because in the earlier part of the movie, he spends a good portion of time telling Jerry that he is ugly.
Super ugly.
Yeah.
And so here he is at this point, reassuring and consoling Jerry's child. You're not ugly. It's okay that you look different. There's a real turn. And by this point, it feels earned. It doesn't feel jarring. Interesting is the wrong word. I enjoyed the echo. I thought
It feels really organic.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, and the part that's intriguing is, this step parenting. You can see that he clearly loves this kid and he would do anything for zombies. And at one point, he's like you said, he's consoling zombies and making him feel better about, who he is and who he's been essentially raised to be by this space cowboy that got stranded on this planet. And he looks at zombies and he says, for a Drac, you're one good looking kid. And it's just kind of a funny moment because, like you said earlier, he called Jerry ugly like 11 times. And so he called him names and punched him
tried to light
times.
his ass on fire.
Yeah,
choked
him, punched him. I think he threw a shell at him at one point, the space turtle shell, which, as we know, can stop meteors. So that's a hefty blow.
verbally berated him.
Yes,
but it really is organic. Like it felt earned at that point.
Yeah.
Another sort of small irony tucked away in there, on top of the calling Jerry ugly the entire time, and then trying to console zombies and be like, you're a good looking kid. He says, like you said, as far as Drax go, you're a good-looking kid. And, in the very beginning of the film, during, the voiceover, or during one of the voiceovers, he says, as funny as it sounds, I'll admit, I've never actually seen a Drac before. I'm not exactly sure what they're like. And so, his entire catalog of Dracs
is one person.
Is Jerry and Jerry's kids. And he's like, as far as Drac kids go, you're a good-looking one.
You're the best-looking Drac child I've ever seen.
You look way better than your dad.
But that's just it. That's the beauty of that scene is, all of that shit goes away because it's not about trying to reason something out or all this stuff. It's about trying to make a kid feel better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
About being in, kind of an awkward situation. And, these awkward situations very much exist in the real world. And it's really cool to see that kind of stuff played out just on a different stage. And instead of, different types of people being thrust into this type of situation, it's a human and an alien.
Yeah, this movie is very, very much about humanity and how we treat each other. Probably nearly all of the Drac characters that we see, I believe, were played by African Americans, and I don't think that was done by accident. I think that it was meant to highlight the separation and division amongst ourselves, and how there are a lot of people that don't know anything about anyone that doesn't look like them, and they hate them for no reason. They've never even seen them, and they hate them, and I think that was probably the main undercurrent, the main message of it. I don't think that the casting was by accident.
No, I would agree. I'd say that the casting was 100% intentional. The BTA is the corporation that Dennis Quaid's character Willis is a part of, and they're very whitewashed. Everything is very white and clean and bright and shiny, and the Drac have sort of this earthy tone to them, and they have layers of organic clothing and bumps and scales, and it's very, very clearly a depiction of the inherent racism that has been around for centuries. And I, like you said, I think it was 100% intentional and highlighting the fact that we have hated people that we've never even seen. I mean, Dennis Quaid, in fact, in the movie, like we touched on earlier, he shot down 3 of them, and he's never even seen their faces.
Yeah, yep.
I think also kind of in that vein, but pivoting slightly, is to kind of the writing of this film, is I feel like that exploration of social issues through a sci-fi medium is a very Roddenberry thing to do. I feel like Star Trek overall did this constantly, and they were always sort of pushing the bounds of like holding a mirror up to society through their sort of creative lens, or his creative lens specifically, talking about Gene Roddenberry. And this movie really had elements of that, deep elements of that, and I thought that was pretty cool. And that's very clearly like the underlying theme of this movie, but there's so much more to take away. Like there's so many different sub-themes, you know, on top of the racial element, like we were talking about, there's the kid element, and then there's sort of like a social and class element, and it's really cool to like, I mean, honestly, you could talk about this movie probably for...
Oh, I could talk about it for days.
You could probably write a thesis about this movie.
Easily.
Just, you know, with a chapter being every, like, subplot. Every theme that really weaves its way through.
And we're talking about the messages here. I never felt like it was too heavy-handed. Like, I didn't feel like I was being preached at. You know, these are things that kind of bubbled up and that kind of echoed our reality. But... I've seen preachy movies. I didn't feel like this was one of them.
So when I said heavy-handed, I definitely meant not heavy-handed in terms of preachy, but heavy-handed in terms of kind of riding the line with that like cheesiness and corniness. Is like the dialogue like openly calls out what they're talking about. Like these are not themes that you have to hunt for or like sniff out or interpret. It's right there staring you in the face, and like the dialogue is really like goofy almost because it's so like aggressively present. And that's true basically for all themes, and even like not themed stuff. Like it's even true for like the jokes. The jokes are like, they're like overtly over the top. They're just like
the jokes had me giggling the whole time, just because, like you said, you know, you get punched in the face with a cheesy line and it's impossible not to laugh. But the jokes, particularly on Dennis Quaid's part, were very intentional, and the dialogue itself between the two main characters is just fun. There's moments where you get that levity that kind of breaks through the heavy message and the disconnect between them. You know, it sort of bridges them together, which makes you endeared to them.
Yeah, and I think also like with the heavy-handedness sort of going in that vein is, I don't know if this is true or not, but like there was a part of me that thought in the movie for a second that this movie almost feels like it was written like in the 50s and not made until the 80s.
Yeah.
Because it had like the sci-fi elements were just exaggerated. You know, they felt very like, I'm going to say War of the Worlds, even though I know that's before the 50s. But, you know, that sort of 50s sci-fi, like, monster, alien, everything super exaggerated space opera kind of shit. Like, that's a little bit how it felt. But, you know, yeah, it just felt like if normal is like a 7, it felt like an 8.4, you know? It was just a little bit like... It went a little bit harder on everything, which is cool, and I love it, and it makes for that beautiful corniness.
Speaking of some of that corniness, I think we can kind of like sum up some of these other kind of general topics here. The soundtrack was very 80s.
Oh, 100%.
Like, we had synthesizers all day.
And orchestra all throughout. It was a healthy mix.
Yep. I felt like the special effects were kind of what you'd expect for the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
And like it's the kind of thing where, again, it's like some people are gonna hate it. I can't get enough of it. Practical effects, like, light me up with that shit. There's these, like, again, these fucking turtles that are like, they're like a mix between like a turtle and a trilobite. And a cockroach turtle trilobite. And they're like, somebody built this fucking thing and it's clearly fake, but it's also awesome. And like, there's this little like tongue thing that comes out of the dirt.
I affectionately called it the penis flytrap because that's kind of how it works. It
basically
looks like a giant penis that eats you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a really fucking nasty thing under the dirt, like basically like a sarlacc, that's just waiting there to gobble things up. And it was a giant fucking like monster that somebody built with their fucking hands, and it was not CG, and it was awesome. And also on this note, because we don't have really this necessarily on our list, but like this movie was so beautiful with respect to the planetscapes. Like the planets and space scenes were very clearly like hand painted, and they look stupid and corny now, but they're also like very beautiful works of art. And if you can get past the fact that like it doesn't maybe necessarily look exactly like you're looking out into the night sky, it's an incredibly imaginative way of portraying these like very foreign, bizarre alien worlds. And the artists, whoever they were, who created these worlds, did an amazing job. The paintings were incredible.
I feel like all the special effects really in this movie were, you know, the scapes as well as the practical effects and the costume. Everything was very cohesive. You know, like you were saying with the creatures, they were clearly fake with our eyes. You know, it's 2020, but they were a part of the world, and they didn't feel like they were, you know, clearly they weren't CGI. But like when you're watching something and you can clearly tell that something is CGI. You can clearly tell it's CGI. So if you're faced with two options, you know, I can clearly tell this is CGI or I can clearly tell that this is special effects. Either way, you have to suspend your belief a little bit. With the practical effects of this movie, it felt like those creatures were a part of that world. Everything was
organic.
Yeah, that word keeps coming up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was done very well.
Yeah, I would agree, especially with the planetscape. I mean, there were storms, there was snow, there were meteor showers, there was hot lava. I mean, you could see the heat in the air around our characters as they're moving through this treacherous landscape. And at one point, winter seems to hit, and there are two seasons on this planet, hot and cold. And you know, during the winter season,
They were not in Michigan.
No, they were not. They were definitely not in Michigan. There was no rain. So
That's true. We get a day of rain in the fall and in the winter, and everything else is hot or cold.
yes. And you know, during one of these storms, there are pillars of stone falling over and crashing onto our characters as they're deftly dodging these giant pillars. And it didn't feel fake. You could tell that it was paper mache, but when it hit the ground, the dust moved and the wind was howling, and it was very evocative. It was immersive.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing looks more real than something that's real. And I've said this on this podcast before, Hollywood, if you're listening, start making real shit again.
Yeah. For real.
Do it. Okay, hang on. Back to the narrative here. Raising the child.
We should probably jump in and talk about earlier in the film, about halfway through the film, Dennis Quaid starts getting these like dreams that like a ship keeps visiting the planet, and he ends up like exploring that, and he finds out that basically these space miners who take Drax as slaves basically are visiting the planet, and he doesn't want to converse or
he doesn't want to present Jerry with any uncomfortable truths.
Yeah.
But beyond that, he just doesn't. I think it goes deeper. I think he doesn't want to face the fact that he and the rest of the humans are the bad guys in this scenario.
Yeah, I think also he was sort of presented with an uncomfortable situation where like he probably would have been fine walking up to them, even though they're kind of like shitheads and very dangerous people. He probably could have been like, hey, I need a ride up to my ship, and he didn't. He turned around and he went back to Jerry, and he's like, I didn't know what I was going to say to Jerry, blah, blah, blah. So he basically didn't say anything to Jerry, and he basically tried to teach Zamis not to go near these people because they're super dangerous, and they take him as a slave and a prisoner. Yeah, so that's sort of like happening kind of in the background through most of the film, and then it basically gets a really violent shove into the foreground when Zamis kind of runs away and tries
as teenagers do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tries to interact with them because, of course, he thinks all humans are like Willis, which they're not.
Yeah. Yeah. So Zamis is captured. Willis is left for dead. Just some strange happenstance. Willis happens to get rescued. He's brought back to his
hub ship.
Yeah. Nursed back to health. He's back on his feet, back in his uniform, shaved his face, and
Do we need to mention that
the substantial beard?
Well, with that, but do we need to mention that he was definitely not dead, and they were about to like launch him into space?
Yeah, they were literally. They had the wreath on the ready, about to shoot him into space, and then he's just like, it's my necklace. It's like the corner or whatever, the goof they had pushing the button was like, I like this necklace, I'm gonna take it. And in the course of trying to take off his necklace, which happens to be kind of like a mini, think like a mini Bible that you might find in like a hotel or something, on him. Anyway, this goofball's trying to take it off his neck, and he just reaches out and grabs the guy. Like, nobody even checked for a pulse.
He also got he got shot square in the chest. Like, you could see the bullet hole in the whole scene, like straight up in the chest. And then like they just like picked up his body off this planet and decided to not check if he was okay, and just assumed he was dead, placed him in a body bag, and he was like on the first fucking like line to be shot into space.
Like, why didn't they just leave him on the planet?
You're right, yeah. That's pretty much the
fertilizer, man.
Yeah. And then, of course, now they know he's alive, and they have the technology to like extract the bullet and like
we can rebuild him.
Yes, stitch it. They had $6 million exactly to the penny, and
so they fix him in like 24 hours, which is what it kind of felt like. No, he does mention that he has no idea how long he was on the operating table, but as soon as he's on his feet, he promptly steals a ship and races back to this planet to save zombies. Which I don't know if we need to... This is like a 15-20 minute segment where he's fighting the miners and the scavengers, and ultimately he rescues zombies, and kind of in short order ends up taking him back to Zombie's home planet and performs the ritual like Jerry had asked him to, and it just kind of completes the circle.
Yeah, and that's... I mean, I think that's the movie in a nutshell.
Yeah.
I know we...
Or in a turtle shell, really.
In a turtle shell. Turtles in a half shell. Turtle power. Mm-hmm. I know we went over that really quickly, so it was kind of a blur. Not sure if you got it, listeners, but that's the movie.
It's great.
It really
It
is.
is.
Anything else on things that we liked?
I particularly, again, as cheesy and corny as a lot of the dialogue was, I really enjoyed the discourse between Jerry and Willis. I don't know, listeners, if you've ever seen the movie 13th Warrior starring Antonio Banderas, but in that movie, he actually goes from speaking a version of Portuguese to learning the Nordic language just by sitting around the campfire and listening to them. And that's sort of what you get here is they are forced to talk to each other or go crazy. And they do both. Mm-hmm. And it's magnificent. Linguistically, it's fascinating because, you know, you spend enough time around someone who speaks a foreign language, you start to pick up not only on the meaning of the word, but the context of the word itself. So you hear that word in a sentence, you can kind of pick out what it means. And when you add body language, subtext, emotion, and tone of voice, you really get a full picture. So they're trading each other's languages throughout this film, and it's just fascinating to see because by the end, Willis is speaking fluent Drac, and Jerry is speaking English better than most people I know. So it was really wonderful to see that. And the dialogue itself, you know, the lines that were written for these characters were fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Also, we should mention that the Drac kind of sound like the Cowardly Lion when they speak. There's a lot of...
Like a Wookiee almost.
Yeah, but I feel like the Cowardly Lion does it in the front with like a tongue roll, and this is like in the back, like almost like a croak. Like it's like a. It's like a Wookiee, but it's not as like screechy as a Wookiee, but it's also not as forward in the mouth, I think, as the
it's
Cowardly
less
Lion.
and more.
Yeah. Yes.
Like a gentle.
Yeah.
As far as things that you didn't like, the only. It's more of like a gripe, I guess, but it was the pacing. But I think we've already covered that, like, it was kind of needed for the story that they were telling. So I'm not going to say that I don't like that. I am going to say that during the movie, I noticed it, and I think most people will notice it. But that's not really a criticism, I guess. I enjoyed this movie pretty much start to finish.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. A little bit of pacing issue. Cheesiness if you don't like that kind of thing, and a little bit heavy-handed with the writing and the dialogue. I mean, if I had to choose something on this list that I probably would improve, it may be the writing.
The acting, in my opinion, on the part of the B, C, and D list actors was pretty bad. Just objectively, it was pretty bad.
I feel like B and C were like not particularly well represented. A lot of D-list actors.
Lot of D.
Oh, wow.
There was quite a bit of D in this movie.
Phrasing.
If you get what I mean.
There was a lot of D.
Sarlacc D.
Yeah.
Are we ready to move into quotes?
Let's quote the shit
I
up.
love this.
All right. So I, full disclosure here, this was a line that I enjoyed that I had to pick up from one of these guys because I didn't take any notes. And I'm kicking myself for it. But one of my favorite bits in there, this is after Jerry's passed, and Willis is trying to figure out what the heck to do with this baby Zamis. And he says, what do you want me to do? Run down to the market and buy some Gerber baby Drac food? It's just like he's at his wit's end. He has no idea what to do with this creature.
Which is perfectly reasonable.
It's absolutely...
like,
you don't know what they eat.
It's a goddamn alien. Like, what are you supposed to do? Yeah, I got two on here. The first one is the first one I feel like is both the first hardcore moment of levity, and it's also the first word that we hear Jerry speak in the movie. The first word of English, rather. And it's when Willis is trying to construct the shelter, and he's pretty much got it there. And the voiceover is going during this construction process, during the montage of the building. And he is talking about how he's learning some of the Drac language. And I'm teaching him some English. And he's picking it up pretty quickly. Or he's learning some words of English. And Willis stands next to Jerry, kind of with his chest puffed out, all proud of his structure. And Jerry's looking at the structure. And the only word he utters is, shit. Yeah. and then he proceeds to say, like, what does he say?
Not stable.
Not stable.
Yeah.
Just like the only fucking thing you hear is shit. So good.
And of course, the structure collapses right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dennis Quaid goes to prove that it's stable, gives it a swift kick on either side, stands back and goes, hey, look at this, and it immediately collapses into rubble, which was very satisfying.
The second quote I have is from when Willis is teaching Zamis football, just as like an activity. He's like, the transition is, he's old enough, I've decided that it's time he start his training. Yeah. And then they're like walking into this kind of open area, and you're like, oh shit, what's he going to train him? And then he's like, this, Zamis, is called football. And they're like getting ready, and he like created a jersey for Zamis, and it's really cute, and he's teaching him how to play football with this like thing that he kind of like ripped out of the ground that's like sort of like ovate in shape, so kind of gets at the idea of a football. And of course there's only two of them, so he's kind of modified the rules and shit, but they're having fun, and it quickly turns into like, again, there's a decent amount of montages in this movie. It turns into a cute montage where like he's playing with the kid, and they're running around and doing their thing, and then like the montage ends, and they're sitting and they're sort of like discussing the game and stuff, and sits down, he like rips the ball open, and it's clearly food. And he like hands it to him, and they're talking about football, and he's like, I like this game, and he's like, I like it too, it's fun, right? And then he says to Zamis, you don't normally get to eat the ball. That's a bonus.
It's fantastic.
It's just like in the scene, because you're so like, your heart is so warmed from watching this guy play with his kid, and then you don't normally get to eat the ball. That's a bonus. It's so cute.
Yeah.
See, anybody who's met me knows that I speak in movie quotes constantly, so I picked up on a few in this great movie. But we talked about earlier, Dennis Quaid's fun character Willis decides to enact his vengeance by setting Jerry on fire, by literally setting a lake aflame with Jerry in it. And Jerry obviously is fine. But the second he shoots this magnesium flare into this lake and the whole thing erupts into beautiful, brilliant flame, he looks down, laughs maniacally, and says, say your prayers, Toadface. Fantastic. Another great one, which we talked about earlier, when they're having the religious discussion, Jerry very angrily looks at Willis and says, hey, Dawich. Again, Dawich is his last name, Willis Dawich. He says, hey, Dawich, your Mickey Mouse is one big stupid dope.
Yeah.
words he learned from Dennis Quaid himself. So I think he's kicking himself a little bit for teaching him the word dope. And last but not least, when they're bonding and having a good time, Willis and Jerry are talking, and we've discussed many times that they are an old married couple. They have been together for quite some time, and they like to rib each other a little bit.
One of these days, Alice.
One of these days, boom, zing, straight to the moon of Drek. So he's looking at Jerry with this fondness in his eyes. He's smiling. They're having a good time. And they're literally fighting for their life right now in the middle of this winter storm. They take shelter in a cave, and Willis looks at Jerry and says, "Hey, maybe we should open up a little place here. I could ruin the food. You could frighten the customers."
Yeah. The dialogue is so... I almost... halfway through this, are we watching a censored version? Because he's not swearing. Like, we're using words like dope and like toad face, and like these are words that you throw into an R-rated movie so that you can play it on TBS.
He does say shit a few times, and Jerry says it once, which we discussed, which was hilarious. But that's the worst that it gets.
Dope
and shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also like there's like an element to that scene where he's trying to calm Jerry down with humor, and it's like the hilarity of that quote is also sort of married to this very heartfelt and sentimental piece of trying to calm a loved one who's clearly in distress.
Yeah.
So it's a really like interesting, very enjoyable quote for that reason. Mm-hmm. How do we feel about ratings? Do we want to move on, or do we have anything else to wrap up on that?
Well, like we were saying, I think we could talk about this for a while, but I feel like it's been thoroughly sliced and diced. I'm ready to rate.
Let's do it.
All right. I'll kick her off here. I am going with a delectable 7.6 zombies. Okay? Now, we're moving zombies, which is a singular. It's just someone's name here. We're going to move that into the plural category, and we're going to use it as a unit of measurement. Okay? That's 7.6 zombies.
Or would that be Zamai?
Ooh.
That is
what
a
is
good
the plural of zombies?
Zamises?
Yeah.
Zamoose.
It's like James.
Nemesis.
I always wonder
Nemesis.
why so many James? Why not just one James?
Yeah. I've wondered that a few times.
Well, when you're with only one James, it's more of a jam.
It is a jam.
You've been jammed.
You've been Jeremy jammed. By the way, I will explicitly call out that excellent reference to Mystery Men you had just there. Like, I did not miss that.
I slipped it under.
Nemesis?
Okay, what do you
Wait,
got?
what was your rating? I'm sorry, I missed it.
Oh, was that 7.6 zombies?
Oh, man. Okay, so I'm going to jump in just because I unusually have this ready to rock and roll, and it's very close to what I was going to do. I was going to do 7.8.
Ooh.
That's a solid rating. I dig it. I like it.
Yep. I'm going to let you rate, and then I'm going to jump in with what my other unit of measurement may have been.
Oh, okay. I gotcha. So, I was a little bit more critical of this movie than my other two compatriots here, but I would give this a solid 6.85 shizmets.
Ooh.
Nice.
Ooh.
Nice unit of holy measurement there.
Now, is that a shizmat or is that a shizma?
I think it's a shizma.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he's actually combining measurements because he's pulling from your measurement there with the shizma.
Yeah.
Well, I think so. So shizmat and shizma, I think it's sort of like a U.S. and international units.
Yeah.
Like a gallon, slightly different, but it's pretty much the same.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
I also had on deck edible footballs.
Yes.
And I was really close between the, but I feel like we really had intended to work in as much as possible into this, and we really didn't, because I feel like the movie's deeper than the that are just everywhere, so I'm really trying to get it out now.
Well, and one of my favorite things, again, linguistically, I'm stuck on this, is they sing the Drac language. So when he's speaking, he's singing and humming and, just sort of making noises with his faceplace. And it's very interesting because when he's talking about the lineage, he's singing, and his singing is more just kind of like.
Boof.
Yeah, and I think like that's sort of like yet another of the deeper themes is like, okay, so there's like the racial element, the ethnic element, but there's also like the religious element.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of the religious stuff was kind of reminiscent of Islam in many ways, like so like
Very much.
Yeah, and like especially with like you're talking about like they're singing the words of Shizmat, and it's like it's very reminiscent of like oh god. Oh, my buddy Yusuf's gonna kill me, but I can't remember the prayer each day is sung oftentimes, and when you read from the Quran, oftentimes you sing it.
Any of you listeners out there know the answer to this, which I'm sure some of you do. You should let us know.
I'm gonna get off this podcast and I'm gonna text Yusuf right away. And
Yeah.
So, all right, are we ready to rock and roll and put a bow on this bitch?
I
Yeah.
think so.
All right,
us out.
well.
Tag it and bag it.
That is all for the Ulcrep review. Thank you for listening. If you have any ideas for movie reviews, email us at 3, that is the number 3, menandabasement @gmail.com. You can also find us on iTunes and Google Play or wherever you find your podcasts. And until then, I am Colin McLeod.
Mark Call, Pierre.
And Action Jackson.
All right, and we will see you in cyberspace.